for all of us to have an open mind and be receiving, and also decide some things that we might do when we leave this meeting. And these things we say and ask in Jesus' name, amen.
Will everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. And everybody just keep coming in and come forward. Will you guys give me a thumbs up when we're recording? Yay, the prayer worked. Okay. That's what I was hoping for. So everyone, my name is Tina Horlocker, and I'm the chair of the Davis County Conservatives, and we meet on the second and fourth Thursdays right here at 6:30 p.m. Let's see. So our next event on the 23rd, however, is going to be in the building in the back. And that is going to be, what is his name? Richard Brown? That doesn't sound right to me. Robert Brown. So he is formerly with the John Birch Society. He teaches the Constitution. I believe he teaches at Utah UVU. Anyway, he's very interesting. He's going to talk about how we can save our Constitution, bring back our Constitution, because we're certainly far from our Constitution. So that will be on the 23rd. And then I'm going to also announce on the second Thursday in November, we will only meet on the second Thursday in both November and December because of holidays. And November, we are going to have a showing of Beneath Sheep's Clothing. So if you've not seen that, please come, please bring your families and bring your friends. So it's a really great documentary. Another announcement that I have is on Saturday, we have the Impact Council, and that is going to be held at the Gail Miller Conference Center in Sandy. And there will be numerous speakers there. They will be talking about basically politics in Utah. If you want to know what's on the scene about election integrity, they're going to have a lot of information there on election integrity, and speakers who are going to be showing what's been going on in Utah. So it'll be really interesting, a great event to go to. If you need help finding where to register for that event, please let me know. It starts at 10 a.m., goes to 2. Is it 10? Will you check, Jen? I can't remember. But I know it goes to 2. They also have lunch, so it's something you want to register. It's $25. There's one other event that is also November 1st, and that event is going to be held in Utah County. Utah Patriots are going to be putting that event on. That'll be another really good event. We'll give you more information the next time. Or you can also watch on our email list. We will have a paper going around. If you will please put your emails on that list so you can be sure and be on our email list so you can understand what events are happening. Who has the email list? Do we know? Peter, can you? Okay, so it'll start passing around a little bit later, but please put your email on that. Jen, am I missing any? Can you think of anything I'm missing? Town Hall? Who's putting on the town hall? Oh. Is Brian McKenzie going to be here? Is that Brian McKenzie's event? Okay. Is John Crofts in this room? I know he was here earlier. John, do you know anything about the town hall that's coming up?
Yeah, next week. It's on the Weston County website. I have to look at
Okay.
it. I think it's next Thursday.
Okay.
He's holding a town hall. He's going to have a presentation.
Who is he?
32 slides. I can share it with anybody if they want it.
Who's putting it on?
Brian's going to be.
Brian McKenzie. Okay, that's what I thought. So, yeah, that would be a really good event to go to because there's some really hard questions that we should be asking. Yeah? Oh, this is a separate event. Well, we'll just talk about the Brian McKenzie event because that's next Thursday.
I believe
Wednesday. Okay. So apparently you can find that on the Davis County website. I would encourage everybody to go to that meeting so we can ask all the hard questions that need to be asked. All right, so tonight we have two speakers. We have the Davis County District Attorney, Troy Rawlings, who is here to speak with us. Our topic tonight, well, at least what we put on our flyer, was that Utah is the #1 child sexual abuse case. That is a pretty horrific statistic. On top of that, Utah is also the #1 in child suicide or teen suicide, which is another horrific statistic. They probably coincide. Maybe Troy could speak to that. I'm not sure. But that says a lot. You know, we need to do something because we need to protect our children. So I am going to just tell you a little bit about Troy. He's been in office for how many years? 8? Okay, I was way wrong. Since 2007, and he has been representing the county, and I know he's helped me with a number of items that have been really important for me, and he's done a lot to fight against, or to bring justice, I should say, to those who have been abusers of children. And so I'm just going to turn the time over to him and let him take over. He does have a slide. They know what they're doing, right? They do. Okay, awesome.
Thank you very much, and Tina, I appreciate the invitation. Part of the reason, I'm going to give you a little bit of brief background, and then I know that one of the most important parts, if not the most important part tonight, is going to be answering your questions. Thank you. I think, to me, I don't want to get out of here without answering your questions. You'll find that if I'm asked a question, I'm going to give you the best, straightest, directest answer that I possibly can. And so, by way of background, then a little bit on my philosophy, and we're going to get to the topic right away. But I want you to know a little bit about me as your county attorney. I am your elected county/district attorney. I take that seriously, and so I'm glad to be here tonight among this group of Davis conservatives because you care. If you didn't care, you wouldn't be here and you wouldn't be watching online. And that's important to me because it's the type of people like you that can partner with our office and maybe do good things as I lay some things out for you tonight about what we are doing. It is a serious topic. Our office takes it seriously, and I want you to know that, and I'm going to lay that out for you tonight on how. Quickly, though, most of you may not even know who I am. And let me submit to you that that's a good thing, because that means we're doing a good job. You're not seeing salacious things on the media, in the newspapers, on the TV. You're not seeing us get hit hard. We don't have very many complaints to our office. We have a senior, serious staff of prosecutors, attorneys, paralegals, investigators. We take our job seriously. And so since it's a serious topic tonight, I guess basically the gospel that I preach in our office to our prosecutors, our investigators, our paralegals, everybody that comes to work every day, what you're doing is you're making decisions that impact lives. Literally, that's what we do. When we file a charge against somebody, it can impact their career, their family. When we decline a case, there's going to be issues potentially on the victim's side. Even if we file a case, that's not an easy road for the victim. Sometimes the hardest thing that happens to a victim is when we actually file the case and move it forward and prosecute it, and they have to be subject to cross-examination at a preliminary hearing or at a trial. The criminal justice system is not necessarily easy on victims, but hopefully we do the best job we can of making the right decisions for the right reasons. And so that's why, if you haven't heard much about me, let me tell you this too. And again, I want to be transparent with you so you can assess me. You have a right to vote. And that is, I believe that the best prosecution models are apolitical prosecution models. I am a conservative, very much so. That may surprise some people in here, since I don't get involved politically, and that's by purpose, that's by design. I don't accept campaign contributions, never have, never will. If I was running for a political office like maybe the U.S. Senate or a state legislative position, okay, but as a prosecutor, I don't want to take anybody's money. I self-fund all of my elections. I have been opposed a couple times, and multiple times I haven't been opposed. But it's important to me, the integrity of our office, to be objective and impartial. Even though personally, I'll bet you anything, I'm probably as conservative, and you could ask my wife, she is too, as pretty much everybody in this room, in my personal political philosophies, my leanings, the way I believe, the way I vote, the way I do. But I run the office in a very apolitical manner because we're supposed to. We're administrators of justice. part of the mandate of a good prosecutor's office. And we, by policy, have adopted the National District Attorneys Association. I want to point this out to you to back up why I do things the way I do and why you don't see me out engaged politically, because I don't want to taint our office like the freaking United States Department of Justice. I'm telling you right now, folks, if you want politically based prosecution, look at the DOJ. If you want the antithesis of the way I run our office in Davis County, the Department of Justice, in my opinion, under the Obama administration, the Biden administration, has been a disgrace. From 2014 to 2017, I was preaching that gospel to people. I put out videos. I was online. We were involved in a case where the Department of Justice obstructed us. I'm the only prosecutor at the state level that I know of to this day. I know at the time I literally filed a motion in court with a district court judge chastising the DOJ for withholding evidence and seeking to compel the Southern District of New York, the DOJ, where a lot of interesting things happen in the SDNY DOJ. It's like where Obama at the time had a lot of his main political appointees running that office. Perkins Coie, the law firm, was involved in our case. A lot of the same characters and figures you hear out there today. You can kind of tell I'm kind of ticked off about it. But I think that the worst prosecution model that you could ever possibly have is right now is the example that the United States Department of Justice has set on politicizing the power of prosecutors to mess in people's lives. So in Davis County, that's why I'm really clear. Our mandate is twofold. It's to protect public safety while at the same time protecting constitutional rights of everybody, even if I don't like you, even if I don't agree with you politically. You have constitutional rights in this country, and my job as a prosecutor, yes, protect public safety to the degree we can. We'll talk about how we're doing it in the context of child sex abuse tonight, but it's also at the same time to protect your constitutional rights. And so that's why I don't take campaign contributions. I don't get involved politically, because I want our office to be apolitical, to make decisions based on the facts, the law, the evidence. Our charging standard, reasonable probability of conviction. What does the admissible evidence show? Is a jury of you, is it going to pass the smell test to a jury of Davis County citizens? Are you going to hear the admissible evidence and find somebody guilty beyond a reasonable doubt? If the probability that's high, we file it. If the probability that's low, we don't. We decline it. If there's constitutional violations, we decline them. We don't move them forward. But it's important to me that you know that, because you're the ultimate check and balance, like judges are the second best check and balance on prosecutorial power run amok. So I try my best in Davis County to make sure prosecutorial power doesn't run amok. We protect your constitutional rights while we're protecting your safety at the same time from the people that need to be prosecuted legitimately based on legitimately, ethically, legally, constitutionally obtained evidence. So that's why we've adopted by policy the prosecution standards. If you look at the bottom of the left-hand page, the National District Attorneys Association manual that we have adopted, it's the 3rd edition. The prosecutor is an independent administrator of justice in the criminal justice system. And what I've got underlined, the primary responsibility of the prosecutor is to seek justice. This responsibility includes, but it's not limited to, ensuring that the guilty are held accountable, that the innocent are protected from unwarranted harm, that the rights of participants, particularly victims of crime, are respected. Up at the top right-hand page, societal and individual rights. So therefore, what I've underlined, we should put the rights and interests of society in a paramount position in exercising prosecutorial discretion in individual cases. That means you're my client. You're the Davis County citizen. In an individual case, it's not the police agency that brought the case to us. They're not our client. The victim in the case is not our client. They're important. They have a vital role in the system. We need to respect their rights. We need to work well and cooperate with law enforcement. But my primary job is, if law enforcement has run amok and violated your rights, I can't move that case forward. If we don't have sufficient evidence, even if there's a real victim, we need to be honest and candid with them up front. Even if you've been victimized, here's why we can't prosecute the case. Because you as the community, we don't want to be wasting time and resources that we don't have on bad cases and political shenanigans and antics. So that's why a little bit, if you've never heard of me, great. Because I intentionally try to stay out of the limelight, out of politics, don't take campaign contributions, to do what I'm now about to tell you in a fair and ethical manner. And that is, in our office, I'm going to go back to the first page. By the way, I have a 3-hour, oh, thank you. I have a 3-hour presentation that was, it's part of an award-winning, it's called the Davis County Citizens Academy. All the law enforcement agencies participate in it. It's a 13-week course I'd encourage every one of you to take. I have one of the nights. It's 3 hours where I outline for you in great detail what we do in our office, how we do it, and why. We won a national award for it a few years ago as the best Citizens Academy in the United States. So I'd highly encourage, if you want to, I can get into more detail about a whole lot of topics for you that night, and I do, including breaking down specific cases you may have seen or heard about in the news and why things happen the way they do. When it comes to our office, though, in protecting children and children's rights and children from being victimized, we make it a priority. From January of 2000, I was a defense attorney for 6 years before I became a prosecutor. But from January of 2000, when I became a prosecutor, through the time I got elected, and then even for another year or so after that, and then I still handle my own caseload and keep involved and have some of the sex abuse cases myself, I did every case in Davis County, every child and adult sex offense case that came into the office. I was the only prosecutor, I was the only game in town from 2000 through almost 2008. I get elected in 2007. I make it a priority. We bring on more prosecutors. So right now, in our office, we have 4 full-time, seasoned, experienced prosecutors signed specifically in our Special Victims Unit to child physical and sex abuse cases. 4 in a county of 379,000 people. That's a lot. These are but it's not enough. If we had more prosecutors in our office, I'd put 1 or 2 more on it, but we don't. We only have we have 19 prosecutors handling 8,600 cases a year. You do that math. So we put 4 of our best, most senior, experienced attorneys on these type of cases to handle them. At one point in time, Jack Ford, the Department of Corrections, this is going to sound like I'm tooting my own horn. I'm not necessarily, but what I want you to know is how serious we take these cases in Davis County. Jack Ford told me one time in about 2007 that I alone had more defendants in the Utah State Prison for sex offenses than other prosecutors in the state combined. So Jack Ford came and talked to me, what are you doing? Well, what you do is you make it a priority. You work with law enforcement, you vet the cases, and we set up the Children's Justice Center in Davis County in the best way we possibly could. And so to help acclimate you guys, I want you to understand and know this. We actually won an award in 2010. I won't have them click on it and pull it up, but at the bottom of the left-hand page, you see Bud Kramer Award. If any of you want to Google that and look it up and see what it is, well, it shows that after I get elected in 2007 and take office, we're making protecting your children, your grandchildren, all the children of Davis County our highest priority. That's why we have more prosecutors assigned to it now. We're doing it so well. We set up our MDT team. It's called Multiple Disciplinary Team at the Children's Justice Center in Davis County. If any of you have ever seen it, great facility. I applaud our county commission for dropping money into that too because it's needed. In that Children's Justice Center, every Wednesday morning for multiple hours, we screen all the new cases that have come in that week through all the 13 agencies, law enforcement agencies in Davis County. We have investigators there. We have CPS, Child Protective Services workers there, therapists there, whoever needs to be there to talk about the cases, the pending cases. We put a lot of effort into them, and our prosecutors, our 4 of them, are spending their full day, working on these cases, screening them, getting them ready for trial, doing all the things that need to be done. So in 2010, we get this thing rocking and rolling. We got an award from the United States Congress. I went back to Washington, D.C. and picked it up. The link I've included there is a link to a Deseret News article about it, about me receiving this award, the Bud Kramer Award, for being the top, basically, investigative and prosecuting agency in the country for child physical and sex abuse cases. Yeah, we're taking it seriously. But even though I'm telling you we're taking it seriously, there is still more work to be done. And here's why. A couple other numbers for you. We have about 600 cases that get interviewed every year in the Davis County Children's Justice Center for the last few years. That's children that come in from law enforcement or CPS. They bring them in to be interviewed based on allegations of child physical or sex abuse. Of those 600 cases a year, and these numbers have held steady the last few years, it's increased slowly over time. About 80% of them are sex offenses. That's about 480 kids that are being interviewed in Davis County on a yearly basis for child sex offense cases, and then we have another 120 or so that are coming in for physical abuse or neglect type cases. Those numbers may sound high. I'm convinced that they're low. I'm convinced that there is a lot more child physical and sex abuse out there that is occurring, that is being reported for various reasons, and that's not the fault necessarily of law enforcement. I'm not trying to indict them. It's just that the statistics and the numbers show us over time that oftentimes there's a reluctance to report, there's delayed reporting, and sometimes that can compromise cases. So I plead to all of you tonight is, and I've included the statute that for everybody when I make these presentations, at the bottom right-hand side of this the mandatory child abuse reporting statute. And there's multiple subsections. I've just included the first one. Except as provided in subsection 3, if a person, including an individual licensed under Title 58, I'll skip through it, has reason to believe that a child is or has been the subject of abuse or neglect, or observes a child being subject to conditions or circumstances that would reasonably result in abuse or neglect, the person shall. And then it goes on, and I don't think I included the rest of it, but that person shall immediately report the suspected abuse or neglect to the division or to the nearest police officer or law enforcement. That's my plea to you. One of the things that you can do to help us educate people out there is the existence of this mandatory child abuse reporting statute, because it's a crime not to. The statute is a lot longer, but it's a Class B misdemeanor. Okay, not the most serious of crimes, but literally, if you have information or knowledge, and I'm not saying anybody in here does, but the community at large, people that have information or knowledge that a child may, and if you go back to what's the operative language there at the first page of that, has reason to believe that a child is or has been the subject, okay? So if you have reason to believe, or your neighbors, anybody has reason to believe, it's supposed to be reported immediately, is the term in the word. If we can get that word out, if we can educate people about that is a requirement, it's a crime for you not to, what does that do? Well, I've learned over time when I talk about this at Citizens Academy or wherever, once people realize that they've got an out, okay, they may suspect that their neighbor, they may suspect their grandfather, you know, they may suspect their who knows what it is. But sometimes there's a reluctance of people to report. But if they understand this statute, psychologically, people can say, I have to. If I don't report this, I could be subject to criminal prosecution myself, which is absolutely true. Somebody can be subject to criminal prosecution for failure to report if they have reason to believe a child may be being the subject of abuse. Yes, ma'am, I think we're going to get questions later, but go ahead. It does. It does now. There's some interesting legal issues about that. I don't have time to get into about priest penitent privilege, but yes. So most churches have legal counsel and hotlines to call. But yeah, as a general rule, yes. Clergy is not completely exempt from complying with this requirement. Okay. There can be issues, though, depending on how the information comes into clergy, whether it's through a confession or not, or what have you, and there's then specific things that clergy have to do. That could be a good topic of conversation for another night, but fair question. All right, so that gives you a little bit of information about the extent. So I'm convinced that these 600 cases coming to our office every year are a drop in the bucket. I think that the problem is probably more widespread than that. How can you help us? Well, way number one is getting the word out there about the mandatory reporting statute so people know they have an obligation legally to do it. And then again, that can maybe take them off the hook if there's a reluctance. It gives them a reason or an excuse or what have you to report child physical or sex abuse case. So please help get that word out. Another way that we're getting cases in our office, and so those come in and we're prosecuting those successfully. Another interesting thing that I want to show you guys. So at the top of the left-hand page, well, let me go back and see if there's any other stats or numbers I wanted to give you. Okay, I'm going to go to this 1,025. So you can see at the bottom left, 1,025, 9 years, 114. Okay, I'm going to explain what those numbers are right now. And I want to show you a video to do it. So folks up there helping me out, if you can click on that video that I showed you, and I'm going to explain to you after you see the video what it is you just watched. It's only 26 seconds and there's no audio, so don't worry. Those are the mug shots of the 1,025 people since we started keeping track at the end of 2016 that our office in partnership, and let me be clear, this is a partnership with every law enforcement agency in Davis County. Your sheriff's office actively involved with this, all the police agencies, and our federal partners, FBI, Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. Those are the 1,025 mug shots of people that we've been able to arrest and successfully prosecute in Davis County since the end of 2016 when we started putting those mug shots up because we wanted to keep track of it that way. And it's we call it our wall of shame. What are those? These are in addition to the Children's Justice Center numbers I gave you of the 600 kids coming in to be interviewed about child physical or sex abuse. What those are the 1,025 that have been popped for enticing a minor over the internet. What that means is you have online predators. We've caught them coming into Davis County from Canada, Kansas City recently, you name it, all over the country. You have predators that are preying upon your kids, your relatives, your nieces and nephews, whomever it may be, predators who are online, very adept sometimes at sucking kids in, getting involved in chats with kids, presenting pornography to kids. So the other thing that we get these folks for is dealing in harmful material to a minor sometimes, along with the enticement, sexual exploitation of children. So there's a plethora of multiple crimes that occur with this. But what happens is we have partnered, and I'm going to brag about this again a little bit, just to show you we're putting a priority on this in Davis County with all of our law enforcement agencies and partners. Sean Reyes, goes back to the days of Mark Shurtleff. Every year, the Utah Attorney General's office used to give out an award, the ICAC Award, Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force Award. That award was awarded to whichever agency in the state of Utah was the lead agency in the previous year, statistically, for the investigation, prosecution, and conviction of internet crimes against children, online predators. Well, guess what? Davis County, we kept winning the award. We won it under Shurtleff every year. Mark Shurtleff made a joke about it when he gave me the award at the Zermatt, I think the third or fourth time in a row when he was the Attorney General, about Davis County winning this award again. Sean Reyes, 2 years into his administration after we won the first two, they stopped giving that award for a while because we kept winning the award. And part of the reason we kept winning the award is because the way we do business with our prosecutors, we try to streamline, be efficient, again, protecting constitutional rights. The feds have partners, so one of the lead hubs of prosecuting internet crimes against children, investigate them, is right here in Davis County. I'm not going to tell you where it is, some of you may know, but what I just showed you, the video, where all those pictures are, that's right here in Davis County. That's in one of your cities. It's a location of our investigator's office where they work and they have meetings regularly. They have chat nights. The FBI comes to Davis County. The Intermountain Region West FBI, they come here because they like the way we do it. They would rather pop the suspects coming into Davis County because they like our efficiency, they like our law enforcement partners, our sheriff's office, our police agencies, and they like the way our office prosecutes the cases. So we have Homeland Security, we have ICE, and we have the FBI. They used to partner with the Utah Attorney General's office. They don't anymore. They literally partner now with Davis County, and they come. The AG's office comes and participates, but they kind of got, you know, like I said, we kept winning the award, and so it is what it is. They quit giving it out. But we're doing everything we can for you folks here in Davis County because it is that big of an issue. It is that, so you do that math, that's 114. So I think I broke that down. So that's 114 predators a year since the end of 2016 that have come into Davis County. And what are they coming here for? And I'm not trying to be too crude or graphic for you, but it's the truth. They're coming here to have sex with what they think is a 12 or a 13-year-old. We have a couple of great decoys. There's an FBI decoy. She's really, really good. She looks a lot younger than she is, very small. We have in our office, one of our paralegals is incredible. She works in our investigators division. She's 27. She can pose and look easily in a park at night like a 13, 14-year-old. And so literally what happens, folks, is we get these people, we do the chats, we get the evidence we need, we literally get them to show up. They think that they're coming here literally to engage in gross, deviant, violent sexual behavior with a Davis County child, and they get arrested, and they get prosecuted, and they get prosecuted successfully. And when I told you before about 4 full-time prosecutors prosecuting our Children's Justice Center cases, well, now add number 5. My Chief Deputy, David Cole, is assigned to all these cases, and I help him. So this is part of the caseload. I do too. I take overflow cases from the Children's Justice Center as well as other cases. But so there is a number 5 for you. David Cole is the lead prosecutor on all of these enticing a minor over the internet cases. David's a senior experienced prosecutor. He was 10 years as the chief compliance officer and prosecutor at the FTC, Federal Trade Commission in Chicago, before I hired him to come back to Utah. We used to work together before he went to Chicago. He's one of the better trial attorneys and prosecutors, probably a name you never heard, but very, very good at what he does, and he gets convictions on these cases because the FBI, ICE, Homeland Security, and our local law enforcement, they investigate them right. They don't violate people's constitutional rights in the chats or the subpoenas or the search warrants or all the things that go into these, so we can put effort for you into protecting the children in Davis County at the premium level that we can. However, again, and then I know we've got another speaker. I want to turn the time over to her. I want to be available for questions then at the end as need be. But again, the best way you can help us is, and you hear that kind of saying all the time, if you hear something or see something, say something. Again, if you have reason to believe, or anybody does, that a child's been physically or sexually abused, we will take it seriously. It's going to be investigated. If that child is somebody that's identifiable, you're going to be in good hands with your police agencies in Davis County, and they're going to try to, we'll try to make appropriate, proper decisions with those cases. Before I turn the time over to other speaker, yes, sir. I'll take a question now.
Is that Davis County only, or is that statewide?
It offering which?
To contact you.
Statewide. Now, if it, so that statute applies statewide, but like, let's say it's down in St. George. So if you're aware of a child, have reason to believe a child's being abused in St. George, you would contact law enforcement down there. So in the appropriate jurisdiction where you think that that child is being subject to abuse, that's the agency or entity you would contact. Yes, sir.
So you've got a bill that has a state senator here in Centerville area has tried to pass like 3 different times. SB 155. And it passed out of committee, which is insane to me, but it was to basically take a sex offender that was registered for life. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah, I think I know. I think is it sex offender registration to lessen to
10 years versus
yeah.
a lifetime.
Right.
And a judge would decide.
Yeah.
What's your feelings on that? I see that and I want to barf.
Yeah.
And I just think, how is it possible? I mean, you guys are doing all this hard work. You get them on this registration. I'm sorry, like, you molest a child, it's not like you get better. Like,
Yeah.
it's just you're mentally sick, and it's never going to get better. So how do you deal with something like that, realizing right here in your community, he represents a big swath of Centerville, Bountiful. He's trying to help child molesters and sex traffickers. That's literally sex trafficking, child molesting, to let a judge decide if it should only be 10 years.
Okay. Fair enough. And Tina, do you want me to cut off questions after this for our next speaker? I'm more than happy to do that.
You're good for about 10 minutes.
Okay. Okay, you tell me when I'm done, okay?
Because my mind
Yeah.
can't wrap around that. When
Right.
I sat in that committee meeting and I told them, if you pass this, you guys are sick puppies.
Yeah.
You had Fillmore, Colmore, McKell, which is obviously no surprise, and Todd Wheeler, all voted out of committee.
Yeah. Fair
I mean,
enough.
I was like dumbfounded.
Yeah. So for those of you who are online, and I don't know if the online folks can hear, but the question that the gentleman's asking me is about lessening the severity or the length of time for sex offender registration for certain sex offenders, and I guess what my thoughts are about that. And I told you I'm always going to give you an honest, candid answer. So first of all, obviously the longer a person is on the sex offender registration, the better that protects public safety. Because statistically it's true. You don't rehabilitate a sex offender, particularly a pedophile, a child sex offender. They don't become an unpedophile. You can't literally therapy or treat an unpedophile out of them. You've got to incarcerate them, and then you've got to give public notice to the public so that the public knows and can govern and protect themselves. So the purposes of the sex offender registration, just like incarceration, are to protect the public, particularly child sex offenders and pedophiles, from the most vulnerable population we have. So in concept and theory, I agree with you 100%. Philosophically, I am where you're at on the answer to that question, that I don't like lessening the sex offender registration requirements. I will also then tell you this on the other side of it. No offense is necessarily the same. There are gradations in the variations of exactly what did they do. You know, like maybe offending against a 17-year-old, there's lesser penalties than if it's a 7-year-old. So things like, so there's different things that can be taken into consideration based upon the facts of a given case. I think conceptually, I kind of understand a little bit why they're trying to do it. I don't know how they defended themselves. I didn't hear that hearing what you're saying, but
Keep in mind, it's sex trafficking.
okay,
And pedophilia.
okay,
So it's not-
sure,
That's the argument they try to claim. Oh, there's the 17-year-old.
yeah,
That's always the claim.
right.
But sex trafficking is sex trafficking. So
It is.
explain to me why you want to lessen that.
I don't.
You're not a sicko yourself.
Right, fair enough. I don't want to lessen that, but personally, And so I never supported that bill. You never saw me signing off on that bill. I was one of the, they approached me. They wanted my buy-in, quite frankly, because they think it would help. I actually led the fight a few years ago to make sure the death penalty didn't get repealed in the state of Utah. I was the chair of the County and District Attorneys Association at that time, and a lot through my efforts as the chair of that organization and marshaling other counties. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that legislators know sometimes if I weigh in on an issue that it might matter. So they did try to get me to weigh in on that issue favorably to them, and I wouldn't do it because philosophically, morally, I'm opposed to that. But let me tell you the practical issue, though, that then is posed on the other side of that, and why some prosecutors or why some people, may think that this is not a bad idea. So if you leave the discretion up to a judge, you're going to have a wide array. I'm telling you, different judges do different things even in Davis County. It's kind of interesting, but I could tell you, if we get a case when we file electronically, it goes to Judge X, Y, or Z, we can pretty much predict for you what's a likely sentencing outcome with that judge, and sometimes they would be very different. Judge X may be inclined to give a very different sentence. I won't use, I can use some former judges, but I won't. But I could give you some specific names of judges and examples that we could tell you that. So leaving it up to a judge is like the wild, wild west. It's leaving it really open. It's going to be kind of the luck of the draw. There's not going to be any consistency necessarily in application of what it is. And so that's one of the downsides. But as a prosecutor, here's a practical reality too. The sex offender registration requirement, as interesting as this may sound to a lot of you, that drives a lot more cases to trial than we otherwise would have to try. Now, it's our job. We're trial attorneys. We take cases to trial. But I'm telling you right now that one of the things that happens in cases all the time is defense attorneys want us to plead cases to non-registrable sex offenses, or they're going to take us to trial. Okay, that may not, but when you got, like I had an example not long ago. I have a 16-year-old girl, sexually abused for 2 years by her stepfather, who makes a lot of money on the East Bench of one of our cities here in Davis County. She has two sisters, 8 and 9 years old. Her mother doesn't want her to testify against her stepfather. Mother only has a GED education. So as we're getting ready for trial, the girl literally, coincidentally, she takes off and runs to Alabama a week before the trial because she didn't want to have to testify at trial. A lot of victims are reluctant to testify at trial. It's traumatic. I've put 5 and 6-year-olds on the stand at trial over my career. It's younger children. So bottom line is the thinking of some of those who want to change the sex offender registration requirements, some of their times their argument is it's better for victims because if the sex offender registration is not so draconian, less cases are going to go to trial, less victims are going to have to testify, and sometimes trials are crapshoots. So again, I agree with you, your position. That's why I didn't support that bill. But the practical reality of the sex offender registration is we're trying a lot more cases. We're having to put a lot more victims on the stand than we otherwise would because literally all the time, so sometimes what we have to do, and I don't like this, but I'll always give you an honest answer. When we have victims who refuse to cooperate, what can we do? We can do a material witness warrant. I could put that 16-year-old girl, I could get a warrant, put her in jail for up to 10 days, renew it if we have to, force her on the stand. We can do that with victims. We can arrest them on a material witness warrant and force them on the stand. But when they refuse to cooperate sometimes because they get afraid, they don't want to go to trial, and that happens more than people would know, where victims literally don't want to take the stand, then sometimes we have to plead cases to non-registrable sex offenses to get a conviction. We have to plead it to an aggravated assault as a third-degree felony rather than a sex abuse of a child as a second, because that sex abuse of a child carries a registration component to it that the defense is not willing to do, and I've got a victim that's not willing to testify. So sometimes there's practical applications of things where the rubber meets the road, where something, and again, I'm not telling you that because I support that bill, and I don't, but the practical reality of the more strict and harsh the sex offender registrations are, the more A, we're either going to trial, or the more B, we have victims that don't want to cooperate or have difficulty testifying or what have you. So it does lead to plea negotiations more often than I would like, where you have to take the sex offender registration off the table or put your victim, a 12-year-old, in jail in the juvenile detention facility for 10 days to make them testify. Tough decisions. They're not easy calls sometimes, but that's kind of a little bit the other side. But again, let me be really clear to everybody. I'm not trying to support that legislation. I'm just telling you that those strict sex offender registrations have real application in the courtroom and how we have to manage cases. Am I done, Tina? Okay, 2 more.
I have 400 questions. But, first of all, thank you for such a thorough investigation on the Tim Ballard thing. I read through all of the paperwork, and thanks for being transparent on that one. Because it's not illegal to talk to a psychic. It might be stupid, but I appreciate your work on that one. So we have a teen living center, and I don't know how much you can share with me, but do you know if, I mean, it hasn't been open for what, a year? Is that, first of all, I've looked at how parents have to sign over their parental rights to the school district. And so I feel like that's kind of a, I don't know, that's such a sticky wicket. But do you see more crimes coming out of that? Like, do you see, because I'm seeing it, but I can't say anything about some of it because of FERPA. Are there things you can share without violating FERPA, or just make general statements?
No, and I'll tell you why, because juvenile cases, a lot different requirements on juvenile cases. Now, I can tell you in general, the answer to your question, are we seeing more crime in those type of scenarios? Yes.
Can you tell us what she said?
Oh, yeah, she's asking, the teens?
Teen Living Center in Lanton.
Yeah, Teen Living Center in Layton, if we're seeing more crimes come out of facilities like that, and unfortunately, yeah, I mean, and again, I got to be really careful what I say. There's a facility in Woods Cross. You may be familiar with that. We see a lot of victimization of juvenile on juvenile victimization in facilities for juveniles. There's no question about it. That it does happen, unfortunately.
But they do allow them to stay past 18, so is that anything that you can share?
They do what?
They do allow them to stay past 18.
Yeah, and I don't have any information on that yet. So I wish I could give you a better answer to that question. But the answer is our office, our juvenile division, does see a plethora of juvenile delinquent activity of juvenile and juvenile in those type of facilities, unfortunately. Yes, sir.
How do you protect the identity of the victim when they're minors? You have a minor.
Yeah.
How can you protect their identity? So that should not be public record.
Right. We don't disclose that publicly. We have to give it to defense counsel, so the defendant has a constitutional right to confront and cross-examine the witnesses against them, even if it's a 6-year-old. So yes, so we have to give that information, the identity of a minor victim or witness, in discovery to the defense. We don't disclose that publicly. If there's a Government Record and Management Act request or a grandma request, we redact all that. But you have to give it to the defense, and they have to testify in court. So we can't conceal the identity of a minor in court either. Justice Scalia, multiple years ago, in a decision Crawford versus Washington, I happen to agree with, Justice Scalia made sure that the defendant's rights to confront and cross-examine witnesses in Crawford versus Washington were brought back to life. For decades after the 60s, there was a U.S. Supreme Court decision, the liberal Warren Court, that said prosecutors can use reliable hearsay in court to convict people. I don't like that. It made our job easier, because then we could use out-of-court statements if we could show they had indicias of reliability. We wouldn't necessarily have to put a 12-year-old on the stand to testify. Scalia and the Supreme Court reversed that in Crawford versus Washington. They said the Constitution means what it says. Defendants have a right to confront and cross-examine, so we've got to put that victim, even if they're a minor, on the stand for the defense, and hence it leads into some issues with reluctance to testify. So there's only so many things we can do to protect. We don't give it to the media. We don't give it out publicly in a grandma request. But we can't protect a minor's identity in court or from the defense. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. I hope so. You look like maybe it didn't, but I'm done. Okay. One more? Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was just given this thing about SB 213 as I came in, and I was looking it up online. So it says, from what I can understand, it was changed so that if an 18-year-old who's still in high school has sex with a 13-year-old, it's now a third-degree felony.
That's correct, and I don't want to steal the thunder. I think that the next speaker is going to address that issue directly, so I don't want to steal her thunder. Oh, okay. The answer, yeah, that is what that bill did.
So, but if a 19-year-old, is it still like a first-degree felony?
Yeah, if they're not, or if they've graduated from high school, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So it's just an 18-year-old who's still in high school.
Correct.
Third-degree felony. And before it was a first-degree felony, they were 18.
Correct. That bill was specifically tailored for a specific incident in a case in Davis County. But you're right, that is what the legislature did. And again, I think we're going to have, I think she's going to talk about that. And while I was expecting questions about that later, again, I don't want to take from her time or her thunder because I don't know exactly what she's going to say about that. I'd be happy to stay and answer questions when she's done, but if you want me to say a little bit more about that now, I can, but I really want to get to her. All right. Okay.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to introduce our next speaker, but I forgot, our email list is going around, so please sign our email list. And I forgot, we have these amazing shirts. I'm going to pass one around. You know, this shirt is like really helping us know what Charlie Kirk felt about Governor Cox, who's now grandstanding, you know, on the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So these are $20. If you would like one, please let us know. All right. So our next speaker is Ashley Smith. She's a resident of Davis County. She does hair. She has 3 children. Are they all boys? Yep, all boys. And she has an amazing husband who is a paramedic, right? Paramedic, firefighter. And very sadly, as she was growing up, suffered horrific abuse. And she's a survivor of that abuse, but she's going to tell about her experience, some of her experience and some of her thoughts regarding all of that. And following her, we will hear from her husband, who will talk more about the last question, because that also is very important. So I'm going to turn the time right over to Ashley Smith.
Oh, I love this right here. It says, "He is greater than I." I love that. I have a hat that has that on it. Now you guys have heard all the statistics and the laws and some of the boring things. I'm going to make it, just kidding, but you know, I'm going to make it personal and very real. And I'm also going to make it very spiritual as well. Thanks, Tina. Okay, how do I do this? Just click it. Okay. I believe that we are all spiritual beings here having a human experience here on earth. And I love this scripture because we every day are not wrestling against flesh and blood, but we are wrestling against principalities and powers not of this world. And we are in a spiritual battle, especially with child sex abuse. It's very real. So Tina kind of covered some of it, but a little bit about myself. There we go. Yes, I'm married to my husband, Jesse. We've been married for 20 years. He's a firefighter, paramedic, and a literal godsend, and has been a rock in my life and a lot of my healing. And we have 3 warrior boys, very handsome. They're godsends as well, and we are a very adventurous family. We love to go canyoneering and go on trips and lots of sports, and we are very busy with them. I love Jesus very, very much. He is my strength, and a lot of the reason why I'm able to get up here and do this after everything I've been through. He is, he who is within me is the great I am, and I have a great respect and love and connection to him. I'm very grateful for him, so I often like to, I have a lot of Jesus music I listen to, and my car ends up being my worship as we sing Jesus songs on the way to school, or just everywhere we go, we like to sing and praise him. I love essential oils. I'm kind of a nerd and geek about it. I've used them in my healing journey. I love plants. I have a lot of plants in my house, and they bring me a lot of joy and light and love. I've been a hairdresser for 20 years as well, and that's been a one-on-one way of healing for me to help people. And a part of my healing journey as well is I take really good care of my body, and I love strength training and eating good foods and taking care of mine. So that was a picture of me back squatting 245 pounds. So I was really proud of myself. So, and as I've been sharing my story more and more, I've been able to connect with more survivors, and that has been so awesome. That's Mary Beth on the top right. She's also a survivor of sex trafficking. And as I've connected with these survivors, I'm convinced that God's leaders exist within them. They're all very special, and they've all seen and tasted and touched the very depths of hell, and they know God intimately, and their hearts are very loyal to him. Okay. So I hear regularly when I talk to people about my story, this is a very heavy topic. A lot of people don't want to hear about it. It's a little easier for people to just put their head in the sand and kind of focus on the good and just like, nope, we're good. I don't want to hear it. So we are living in a time where we can't do that anymore. We can't keep our heads in the sand. We have to look at what's going on in our world and remember that this is a spiritual battle. In the Book of Mormon in Ether chapter 8, verse 24, we're counseled to awaken to our awful situation. And the more we ignore the darkness just continues to grow. So it's time to shed light on it. And we need to understand that the darkness operates in secrets, and they don't want to be found out. So we're gonna find them out and let them know that we are aware. And remember, this is a spiritual war. We have to know our enemy, and we have to know what he's up to. We have to be willing to look at what he's doing, and we have to be willing to look at the darkness. And our youngest plays football, and every week they watch film before they go play against their opponent. So we want to learn about Satan's film, and so we can come prepared to the battlefield. When we're prepared, we won't fear. And I feel like the real preparation here is learning about the secret combinations that's happening in our world and from scriptures, and to also listen and believe and hear victim stories. So the more we're prepared and we gird up our loins and take upon ourselves the whole armor, the more we are able to withstand the evil of our day. So with that, I'm going to begin. Okay, sorry, I didn't expect. Okay, this is me at 13 years old. I've told this so many times, I don't know why I'm so emotional, but so in 7th and 8th grade, my dad started, he was molesting me on a daily basis. He would come into my bed or pull me into his bed, or we'd play computer games or whatever, any chance he had just to come and touch me inappropriately. As a 13-year-old girl, I was genuinely really confused about this. I had wondered if this is what dad shows love. It was really confusing, and I didn't know, I just understand. But you kind of justify it when you've been groomed. So it went on for about a year, and I'll never forget the day that I finally spoke up. And I was in the bedroom. All of us siblings were all getting yelled at by my dad, and he just would yell at us for no reason and just get so upset. And we all learned really quickly, just be quiet. He'll be done soon. And I remember he was getting mad at us about something that just didn't seem worth getting mad about. And so before I knew it, I kind of just snapped, and out of nowhere, I just found myself just yelling, blurting out, this is nothing compared to what you've done. The room went silent, and my mom asked my dad, what is she talking about? And we were all excused out of the bedroom, and I walked down the hallway and went to the bathroom at the end of the hallway, and my siblings all went downstairs. I'm the oldest of 5, and they all went downstairs, and I just sat in the bathroom, and I just had the most terrible feeling of, what did I just do? I'm gonna get in so much trouble. I just didn't want to get in trouble. I was just terrified, and I waited for that door to be opened, and what seemed like forever, finally it opened, and my mom and dad came out of the bedroom, and my mom came in the bathroom, and my dad walked past her behind her, and he left the house. No eye contact. And my mom in that moment gave me a hug and told me that she believed me. And as a 13-year-old girl, all I could think about was I was completely relieved that I wasn't in trouble. And it took me 25 years to realize that in that moment, my mom had no emotion on her face whatsoever. If my husband had told me that he had just molested and done what he had done to me, to my daughter, I would have been hysterical. And my mom walked out of that bedroom with not a tear in her eyes. You could tell she had just been cold and like very emotionless. And I had to revisit this recently because I was like, why? Why was my mom so emotionless about this? I'll come back to that. Just think about it for a second. My dad had left. He had gone and confessed to the bishop. He was excommunicated. He served jail time with work release. He walked away with only a misdemeanor, which I remember my mom telling me how grateful she was. And as a 13, 14-year-old girl, I didn't really understand what this meant. But I remember feeling like, why are you grateful he's only getting a misdemeanor? Like, I don't know, what he did I felt like was horrible. And it was. And then I was put in therapy. I'm sure CPS was involved, Child Protective Services. My dad was put in therapy, LDS Family Services. And then he was not in our home like my whole entire junior high year. And then the whole junior high for me was hard because even though it kind of came out, like I'm the one that kind of kicked up the dust, there was a lot of shame that my mom put on me and a lot of, like outwardly she seemed supportive, but like she was so good at keeping me quiet, like not to talk again. So I stayed quiet for 20 plus years. I also had a lot of guilt for the one breaking up my family. A lot of my siblings didn't understand why my dad was gone, like they didn't know why he was gone, and it was my fault, and so I carried that for a really long time. And then with the process, eventually, like my dad worked his way back into the home. Like by the time I was in high school, he was just back in the home. Like I first started with like one weekend, like he could like sleep over, and then eventually was like the whole week, and then eventually it was like, okay, we're back in the home, like we're a totally happy family again. And I really wanted to believe that he had changed. Like deep down I knew better. I wanted to know, I wanted to believe that he had been forgiven. I wanted to believe that he had gone through a repentance process, because I believe in a God that changes you and make you a new creature. But like you said, he didn't. But it was just all manipulation, and I just kind of went along with what I was told, and I really just wanted our family to be fixed. I wanted us all to be back together again. So I bought the facade, and we went on. After that, I didn't question him for a really long time. Okay. So at 19 years old, I know. My bangs are sweet, yeah. No, I was proud of those bangs. So in 2005, Jesse and I got married. I was 19 years old, and it was the first time I had actually told about my dad's abusing me, because I had to let my husband know why my dad wasn't going to be at the wedding. And when I told Jesse about it, he was definitely super upset about it. But I was reassuring him, like, I'm okay, don't worry about it, like, it's all in the past, like, I've forgiven him. But the truth is, like, I really was just doing what I was programmed to do. I just wanted to be a good Mormon girl. But deep down, I was just still really asleep, and the abuse that I had suffered at 13 years old was only the tip of the iceberg, which I would discover years later, which is 4 years ago, but we'll get into that. But what woke me up, so we're talking years, It was in 2019. This is our youngest. He's so sweet. He's 10 now, but so in March of 2019, I was over at my mom and dad's house. So we honestly just hung out with them. Like we went, like everything was normal. Like we never questioned. We had family dinners twice a month on Sunday, and it was this specific Sunday that I was over at my parents' house. I never once questioned if I was safe with my dad again. I never once questioned if my children were safe with him. I let my parents watch my family, and like I just was like really so set on like everything's fine. I was fixed. I had therapy. He's fixed. We had therapy. Everything's good. So on this particular Sunday, we're all at my parents' house, and our 3-year-old was at the time, he was downstairs playing with the toys, and at one point, all of a sudden, he comes running up the stairs and terrified. You know that scream a child has that you know they're just terrified and your gut just turns? And he comes running up. Me and Jesse were at a table and we were playing a card game with some other of my siblings. And he came up and Jesse was sitting on the edge of his chair and Finn like climbed in behind him and grabbed his shirt and buried his head behind Jesse, and he was shaking, just terrified. And then all of a sudden my dad comes walking up the stairs. And something in me, all the alarms went off. And it was the first time I actually had this like, something is not right. And my dad started telling me some story about a toy saw, and Finn was ruining the carpet on the stairs with his toy saw. And I'm like looking at my child, I'm like, this story my dad's telling me doesn't align with what is actually happening right now. Like he shouldn't be acting this scared. But again, you kind of just go with the facade. You're just like, okay, like my bells are going off, and I'm just like, this doesn't feel right. We left eventually, like after we kind of like molded over, like, oh, we're all good. And then we got in the car, and Jesse and I both like looked at each other like something wasn't right. And it was from that point moving forward, the first time like I started like falling apart, and it unraveled me. And all of these years later, I mean, we're talking from when I was 13, and now I'm how old at this point? How old am I now? I am now 39. I'm turning 40 this year, you guys. Anyway, I'm in my mid-30s, and it started to unravel me where I started recognizing like, oh my heck, like something's not right. And like 13-year-old me was coming through, and I was starting to question if my parents were safe. And I found myself in January 2020, like I started going back to a therapist, and I remember my family being so mad that I was doing that. Like, you already had therapy. Why are you digging all this up again and getting into this? And it was bothering me. Like, I realized I was the same age as my dad, and our oldest son was about the same age. And so there were so many angles about it that were just really affecting me. So in therapy, I started learning, she was telling me, like, you're now old enough, you have the cognitive ability to actually process what happened to you at 13 years old. And so I started like working through all that, and she taught me healthy boundaries and healthy relationships and what those looked like. And then as I continued to learn healthy relationships, I started setting more boundaries with my family and realizing like, oh, like I can do this, and it's okay, because when you grow up in abuse, you don't know what boundaries look like. And so when you start learning and it's okay, then one thing led after another, without having to go into a million drama stories, but one thing led to another where my husband and I finally had to set a hard boundary where I ended up leaving my family in April of 2021. Yeah. It took a lot, yeah. And then this is where it all ends up not falling apart, but then coming back together. This is my sister. She's here today. She left the family in 2015. And I kind of had a little bit of a clue. Like, I know she had mentioned she was having some abuse as well, and some memories from like her when she was first married. But she just left, and it was devastating to me, and I didn't really fully understand. I knew something bad had happened, but I still was like, oh, Mom and Dad are fine. Well, so I leave with the family. Her and I end up getting reconnected in June of 2021. And as we started like talking, and she started telling me why she had left the family, and as she had shared with me why she left, she shared with me her memories of our dad and our mom ritually abusing us. And it wasn't just her, it was me, and they included dark cloaks and candles. And as she's sharing all this, like my body knew she was telling the truth, but I also was like, I do not recall what you're talking about. And she was, one of her memories, she was 5 and I'm 10. And I'm like, I don't remember anything. So from that point moving forward, as I started therapy because I wanted to figure things out. And then it's been a 4-year process. And it wasn't just 13-year-old me that was abused, it was all of these ages. As I started piecing things together, I was in therapy. God led me to the most beautiful people to help me recover memories. I was having flashbacks and spiritual experiences, different healing modalities to help me heal. And I started piecing things together. I realized this started at infancy up to 13, and it wasn't. My mom and dad were doing this stuff together to us, and my dad had done what he had done to me at 13 outside of what they did together. So I got the bonus treatment. I had disassociated all of it, and this reality was something I never expected. Sorry, I have a hard time looking because she's been through a lot. Come to discover I'm from a long bloodline of evil that needs to be broken. And the life I believe that I grew up in. I grew up Mormon. I went to church every week. We was very consistently going. And outside looking in, you would have never known what was going on. So as I've been piecing together, I had to write these down. I was drugged. I was placed on an altar, surrounded by people in black cloaks. I should say we, because it's Alexa and I both. I was forced to consume their twisted version of a sacrament containing actual flesh and blood. My parents tortured and strangled me on the altar. My body would go limp, and my parents would extract the blood from the base of my skull, and they would drink it. The sexual look on their faces were disturbing as they drank it. I was baptized at 8 years old in the LDS Church, and right after, I was baptized in real blood in the LDS Church of Satan. When I was 9 years old, I was considered the special one on the altar for an initiation ceremony for a new member of the circle. My parents chanted over me in the circle, reminding me of how worthless I was. I developed a core belief that if I'm perfect, then they will love me. Now I know why my mom that day showed no emotion on her face when I was 13 years old. She didn't leave her husband because together they were involved in a sex ring and inflicted horrific satanic rituals on me and my siblings from infancy up to the point where my father had molested me on his own accord. And this really broke me. This reality broke me. It's been a rough few years, but I started sharing my story publicly a little bit here on social media, a few posts here and there, just pieces just about my healing journey. About in October 2022, I did a live interview with Eric Moutsos, top right. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. I know he's done a lot of exposure about what's going on in the world. From that point moving forward, doors opened. I eventually connected with Jason Preston. He's We Are the People podcast. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him as well. He's also exposing the corruption in Utah politically. And I shared my story with him on his podcast March of 2024, and then since then the doors just keep continually being open. I've been speaking at rallies and vigils and fundraisers and recording more podcasts. And along the way, like I said, I've connected with so many more survivors who are waking up to their own SRA, satanic ritualistic experiences. And it's been humbling and powerful to walk beside them. I have never expected that my story would reach this far, and I see now that God has a bigger plan along the way, placing me on the front line of this fight for truth and healing. Now, as I've said, I've mentioned, I've connected with a lot of survivors. I'm not the only one that's remembered their memories from the past of their life. Like, there's so many that are waking up right now. God's waking everybody up, I'll tell you that. And it's not the first time this has happened. In the 80s, this was happening. There was a wave of SRA people waking up, and they were able to silence them really quickly. This is a QR code. You guys can read this Pace memorandum. But Glenn L. Pace, he was the presiding bishopric in the LDS Church. He was assigned to interview these victims that were waking up. And so he did some investigation. So this is his memorandum that he wrote. In it, he talks about how he met with 60 victims, and he limited it to 60 victims because he spent 60 weeks interviewing these survivors. And in the memorandum, I encourage you guys all to read this. It's 7 pages, and he describes what ritualistic abuse looks like. I don't have to go into all the details. You guys heard enough. But he says, it's naive for us to think that these things would not exist in our generation. Surely Satan would not pass on this most important dispensation. He shares several different scriptures at the end of the memorandum with descriptions of these secret murderous combinations, as well as prophecies that these things will always be with us. They've been around since the beginning of time. I just wanted to talk about some of these scriptures really quickly that he mentions in the end of the memorandum. Because when you understand scriptures and you understand cultic practices, it's in the scriptures, and it's staring us right in our faces, and we don't really understand. So when they talk about secret signs and secret words and secret combinations, this is SRA and what they're doing. There's so many scriptures. I had to limit myself just to a few. But Helaman chapter 6, verse 22, it came to pass that when they had their signs, yea, their secret signs and their secret words, and this that they might distinguish a brother who had entered into the covenant, that whatsoever wickedness, his brother should do, he should not be injured by his brother, nor by those who did not belong in this band who had taken this covenant. It's in scripture, and these Gadianton robbers is what they're called. They had their people in government positions, judge positions, lawyer positions, church positions, and they ran everything. Yeah, we are living this prophecy. Verse 26 and 30 of that same chapter, the same being who did entice our first parents to partake of the forbidden fruit, it is he who is the author of all sin. And behold, he doth carry on his works of darkness and secret murder, and doth hand down their plots and their oaths and their covenants, and their plans of awful wickedness from generation to generation. I came from a long line of generational abuse. This stuff is generational. It's within families. This is why it's so hidden. And they also are really good. The way that they're really good at staying hidden. Other scriptures. If you read, I don't know if you guys have heard of Abraham Gileadi. He's translated the book of Isaiah in more modern words so we can understand it. It's listed throughout all of Isaiah. At the very end of Isaiah 66, even just the chapter heading, cultic practices and persecutions by ecclesiastical leaders coincide with Zion's rebirth before Jehovah comes. We're there, you guys. Jesus is coming soon. I don't know if anyone's... He's coming soon. And in verse 17 of that same chapter, there's a warning about it, what he's doing. And then Mormon chapter 8, verse 27, and it shall come in a day when the blood of the saints shall cry unto the Lord, because the secret combinations and the works of darkness. The blood of the saints. I'm telling you, these rituals involve a lot of blood, and we are crying unto the Lord to bring these secret combinations out of the darkness and to be exposed. I don't, for the sake of time, I encourage you to read Ether chapter 8, all of 18 through 26. He really explains more in depth about it. But again, he says at the very end of it, when you see these things come among you, so these things, meaning SRA, this abuse, that you wake into the sense of your awful situation because of the secret combinations which shall be among you. It's in our midst. Love this picture. I want to close on a high note. But Jesus. I know my story is really hard to hear, but it's not without purpose. God's taken what has meant to destroy me and is using it to bring light, truth, and healing. I recently had a therapy appointment where I reconnected to younger parts of me and again saw everything that had happened to me, and I saw that my heart was so loyal to him no matter what they did to me. I didn't forsake him and I stuck with him. I came with a purpose. And that is to shed light on this horrific stuff. At the end of the Book of Mormon, Mormon is writing to his son, Moroni, again about these evil, awful secret combinations, and he lists it quite a bit. But at the end of it, he says to him, and I want to echo what he says, "Be faithful in Christ, and may not the things which I have written, or things I've spoken, grieve thee, to weigh thee down unto death, but may Christ lift thee up." So I encourage all of us to have a relationship with our Savior. Me having a relationship with him, I've been able to work through my story because of him. And I love this quote by Timothy Keller. He's one of my favorite authors about Christianity. It's one thing to know about God, but it's another thing to know him personally. Christianity is not about rules, but about a relationship with Jesus Christ. And I bear testimony of him. I love him, and my story is truly become his glory. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
And I'm familiar with stories like this that people have, and I understand that these memories don't get wiped out in total in this life. That what we have to live with is hard, even though the Savior can lift us up. And so my question is, how do you deal with the memories and remind yourself that you're the 39-year-old you? Does that make sense?
I think so. Like,
And kind of a related one is how do you teach your boys to be honorable, knowing what you know? So both of these, it's a matter of you are an adult, a 39-year-old, healthy, strong woman, but you've had bad things happen to you, and how do you combat the memories?
Jesus.
Examples?
Yeah. My husband said, yes, I am a chain breaker. I'm not them. I've chosen not to perpetuate I was born into hell and I came out glorifying God. And it was a choice. I mean, I know my parents were also abused in the same way, and their parents, like, this is a long line of things, but I don't identify, I am a survivor, yes, but I don't identify as that anymore. Like, I identify as a daughter of God, a relationship with Christ, and I teach my boys that. Like, I want them to have a relationship with the Savior and to come to know him as a real being and then remind them who they are and who they belong to. That the abuse does not define them and doesn't define me. Does that answer your question?
I have empathy that it's an ongoing thing, and
Oh.
I wonder how you fortify yourself.
Yeah.
Just remind yourself that, because I know people who go into deep depression and over their 13-year-old self talking to them and crying and screaming, and so how do you?
I think that the best answer to that, and I know my sister and I can relate to this, is inner child therapy work is actually a really, how do I explain this? Without going into a whole like deep therapy talk, but like the more I've recognized and like honored that inner child at different points, and obviously there's triggers that happen in my life that come up. I've learned to look at these triggers as an opportunity to learn and reflect on what is being presented and like, why am I showing up this way, so then I can heal. In my own therapy I'm doing right now, she does forgiveness, and so we muscle test and figure out like where we're at, what stresses are going on, and then when we get to the core of that stress, we actually walk through the 4 steps of forgiveness, and it is all with God, and then I can then like put everything in a box, so how I envision it, and I forgive that to God and like give it to Him, and then so it doesn't define me anymore, even down to like literally forgiving my parents, because it is not, I don't want it inside of me anymore. I don't want it to control me. So I've been just continually like healing, and it is ongoing. I just had therapy yesterday. So yeah, does that answer your question? Thank you.
What did you say, I mean, this is just my take on any of these kind of things.
Just talk a little louder.
What you're doing right now and getting involved, fighting evil, that's probably the best therapy there is.
Yeah, this
'Cause it gives you a purpose.
Yeah.
It gives you a way to fight the evil and to, you know, and try to regain, I don't know, it just seems to me like that, like you were, like if you continue to do that, you would get better, and you're helping others, right?
Yeah.
Other victims.
Yeah, did you hear what he said? Okay. Yeah, you're right. Actually, this has been very healing for me. I didn't expect it to be very healing for me, because a lot of survivors don't want to talk. They're afraid. It is scary. It is very scary, because at 13 years old, I kicked up the dust and I was the villain. And I have spoken up as I shared a lot of this, like I have again become the villain. Like a lot of people don't like my story, and a lot of my family members don't like my story. Like I have been called a narcissist. I've been called a liar. I'm making this up just because I just want attention. And so a lot of people, and I've also been, I've been not believed. I've even had good close friends I've shared this stuff with, and they end up like leaving me. And so there is consequences, I guess you could say, to speaking up and being open. But I've also, every time I've spoken at something or shared something, I've had a survivor reach out to me, and they don't feel alone. And if I can do that for one more survivor, and we can get them to rise, then that made all the difference in their life, and help them turn to God more.
First off, thank you for your story. For us,
Sure.
you're a hero, right?
Thank you for being here.
My question is, so I guess it's 2 parts really. Like, how do you not resent God during this whole thing? And then the second part is, do you think this is still happening in the communities today? And then how would you recognize that as an outsider?
To answer your first question, part of my healing, I have been mad at God. And I think that's actually a part of the healing process. Like, for a long time, I was mad. Like, why did this happen to me? Why? Like, I was very angry about it. And just the more healing I've done, I've come to, I know a lot of people, when they have bad things happen to them, they end up just hating God, and like, even not even believing in God, and think that, okay, well, if there really was a God, no good thing, like, he would let bad things happen to people. But then we actually know that that's not how God works. He allows agency, unfortunately, and I know that his heart is broken watching his children. He loves abusing more children that he loves. But I have gone through a process of having moments where I was angry at him, distanced myself from him, but I never forsook him. And then your second question was,
Like, is this still prevalent today?
Oh,
Like, and how
yes.
would you recognize it?
That is a really good question. You answer that one.
Yes.
Huh?
The answer is yes.
Well, yes, it's still going on, and he asked me, how do we recognize it?
Pictures up there of all the people that are doing this,
Like,
and that's only the ones that they found and prosecuted for.
right, but like you said, you grew up in a Mormon family,
Mhm.
right? You guys went to church.
Mm-hmm.
Did other people that were sitting there go, yeah, something's not right here?
You know, it's interesting. As I've spoken up more, I have a couple people that are connected to me from my home ward that they were like, yeah, there was something like I felt off about your dad, but that's as far as it went. I think the problem is the cognitive dissonance that happens and that's like we see in society even, like they're telling us one thing and it sounds great, but then behind closed doors that something else is happening. So, honestly, that's why I'm like, we need God, we need a relationship with him, we need discernment, we need to know, like, when our spidey senses, however you want to call it, goes off, like, to act on it, because that is actually where these people hide, is inside communities that, like, wolves in sheep's clothing. Like, it is so prevalent. And at one point, and I know Jesse has a scripture, is in 112, Doctrine and Covenants 112, it's just at some point God is going to be like, hey, like, expose all of it. And so it's a matter of just making sure we're on the right side of God and just having a connection with him, because that's ultimately what it is. It is happening still, unfortunately. Yeah. Shadows of power.
Shadows of power.
Mm-hmm.
Is that they will infiltrate on purpose, because what better loyalty could you show Satan, Moloch, Baal, whoever, that you were a part of something good and you twisted it?
Yeah.
It's like the ultimate insult to Jesus Christ, to infiltrate and pretend to be this thing you're not. So it's not like they're LDS. They're like they don't believe in any of that.
No,
And
yeah.
They're trying to like show Jesus Christ, look, I'm doing it right in your house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a mockery,
Yeah.
especially to children. Like, well, who is the closest thing to God? Is our babies, our children. And to do something to them so horrific, right? It is a mockery, for sure. Oh, wow. I want to say one more thing to to Satan, is his Lucifer is his son of the morning. He knows how to appear as an angel of light. Like, he's so good at that. I think in the last days, especially, like, we need to know God so well so that we can even discern the false light. Like, that's how he gets us, is the taking something good and just twisting it just enough that it still looks good, but it has evil twisted in it. There was like 5 hands. I don't know, like, who went first. Okay.
I just wanted to thank you for your bravery.
Thank you.
Then just out of curiosity, like you said, other survivors reach out to you. I'm just wondering, like, kind of a ballpark number, like how many people about have reached out?
I've connected with about like 20, 30 of them. Like, and we have like a group that we're just like slowly trying to help more. Like, I actually just had a gentleman a week ago. He lives in Colorado. He's in his 50s, having these memories come up, and he's starting on the healing path and wanted to talk to me. And so it's a good amount. I know Jason's talked with hundreds. I know Justin Riggs, he's also talked with a handful, and yeah, like, it's very prevalent. There was like 5 back here. I'll go with you, then you, then you. How's that? And then, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is this okay, Tina? Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay.
So again, I appreciate your bravery, number one. Number two, I love what you said about, and again, putting your head in the sand. We can't do that. I'm a devout patriot too. I feel like any good general has to understand and know the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
We are in a time we need to know the enemy. We can't just all is well in Zion. And we go ahead. Thirdly, I guess a curiosity I had. I don't know if this is too difficult to answer, but do you know how did your parents meet each other? How did they find?
Mm.
So were both your mom and dad in that cultish environment before, or did one groom the other? How did that union happen? I'm kind of like blown away by how that actually.
Yeah. I don't 100% have the answer to that.
Okay.
I know that it's through like my own healing, I've discovered that is on my mom's side, the line doesn't go back as far as hers, and on my dad's, it goes back really far. And
she was abused too, right?
Yeah.
And then lastly, what is statistic? I mean, yeah, you've talked about the fact that when everything appears like everything's all peachy, that's when you have to kind of sometimes look out.
Mm-hmm.
But statistically, whether it be in Utah or this ritualistic stuff, because I've been very familiar with sexual abuse. I was married to someone who was abused by her stepfather.
Mm.
So on a peripheral, I have a lot of experience with the cascading effect of that. But what you went through is even deeper, and obviously you had blocked that out. But do you know what the stats are? Or does he know what the stats are? I'm curious what that is.
With SRA?
Yeah.
That is a good question. I think it's more than we want to realize. Like when you start digging into this rabbit hole, and I mean, I could send you a whole bunch of, if you want to go down this rabbit hole, I have a whole thing, and lots of podcasts if you want to watch, but it's more prevalent than, I don't know the actual numbers, but it's more prevalent than we realize, and kind of shocking, like, the more I start talking with people. And as far as my parents getting married, they all kind of, like secret combinations, they know each other. Like I think that they just keep it within house. So that's my best guess.
You know what they do is they tell on each other, right? You read it. What they do.
Oh yeah, like if you break the oath, right? They
Kill you.
Yeah.
So let's keep the questions really short and brief so that.
So Jesse can go.
Because Jesse still has something to share.
Sure. Just wondering if I should go, and then we can just get back to the questions, but I don't care.
Either way, what do you feel?
Come on, Jesse, you're up.
Yeah, let's do Jesse.
Okay. All right.
Just stand in there.
Okay. That's your slide.
Whatever you want. I'm not a speaker, but Jason Preston's been mentioned. He runs and founded We Are the People. I love it. Talks about bringing power back to the people. Also, we work together on a foundation, StopUtahChildAbuse.com. There's a QR code there, a way to take action. And I encourage you all to click on that QR code and volunteer. I think this might be the wrong crowd to say this to. It sounds like a lot of people are awake and aware and willing to accept these things. I know most people are like me. This is hard to believe. I would never hurt a child, and it's hard to imagine anyone else hurting a child like we've heard from so many examples that Troy gave us, and obviously Ashley's example of what she had to go through. It is hard to fathom. For someone like me, who I didn't experience anything like this. I came this close. Fortunately, there was intervention by God to keep me from experiencing this. But beyond that, it's unimaginable. So I feel like my role in all of this is bringing awareness to people and saying, we need to believe this, because it's hard for people like me to believe. but it is real, and we know it's real. I mean, the scriptures that Ashley read that we believe in talk so much about how real it is. And obviously, if it's not happening, Jesus would not have spoken to it, and he did. I do want to say we both serve him, our Savior, Jesus Christ. That is our purpose here and on this earth, and we strive to serve him. We do feel one of the best ways to serve him is to protect these little ones that are so precious to him, that are innocent. Like Troy talked about on one of his slides, one of their responsibility is to protect the innocent, and I love that. And that is why I feel like I'm here on this earth, is to protect the children. I've found my calling here by being Ashley's partner in this. Yeah, and we know Utah, Tina mentioned it, Utah is one of the worst, if not the worst state in the nation for child abuse. Our, family-centered, wholesome Utah is the worst, and that speaks to what we've been talking about hiding behind. We have so many wolves in sheep's clothing, and evil people are hiding behind the innocence and the family centeredness of Utah, and it's working really well for perpetrators. Also mention high suicide rates, which there is a direct correlation to that, and I mean that can be proven. So we know 1 in 7 reported cases. Jason Preston likes to say 1 in 7, and I've mentioned to him, and he agrees. 1 in 7 reported. How many children are actually being abused, and it's being kept secret by communities or families? It's just like we've heard. It's hard to bring it out. It's hard to prosecute. So I feel like too long we have sat like crabs in a pot of cold water as the water is heating. We have been comfortable in our community of like-minded people that are conservatives, that trust our politicians. I have been at fault, I'm sure, when I have voted down, for me, just R, because they're my people, and I'm going to trust them to do what I think they should do, and they have not. Stuart Adams, like we talked about, pushed this bill to protect his granddaughter, who is 18, having sex with a 13-year-old or sex acts with a 13-year-old. That is not okay. I think about Ashley at 13. I mean, she let it happen with her dad because she didn't know better, because she was 13. How can you expect someone to know better? Yes, so there is, clearly there's some cognitive dissonance there of, it's just impossible for teenagers, 13-year-olds to protect themselves, and that's why we need to protect them. And this is a way, if you click there, this is a way we can protect them. I mean, Troy mentioned we need to speak out. If it's the law that we speak out if we know if anyone's abused, but it is up to us to start paying attention, start voting for people who will protect the children. I am so grateful for Troy and the fact that he has been such a strong proponent. I had no idea, but it is awesome to hear that we are kind of leading the way. Your group is leading the way in protecting children. So with Stop Utah Child Abuse, we are trying to create a group of people, an army of people that can gather together and put pressure. We can't allow, like we said, judges are the wild, wild west. I've even thought maybe we have laws that allow judges to make decisions, but we, the people who are protecting the little ones, we need to be able to stand up. And that's why we are doing this. That's why Ashley and I are doing this, is to help bring people together so we have our army prepared to pressure people like Todd Weiler, who's pushing for people to come off the sex offender registry, and other people. We need to protect our people, our most important people, who are children. Yes. So, yeah, one thing I just want to say is these laws, we keep making laws that protect perpetrators. I was talking to some Canadians when I was canvassing for this purpose, and they were shocked at our rules and our leniency. And they are so much more strict in Canada, who seems to be a pretty liberal country, but they were shocked at how lenient our Utah rules were. This is not a spot where we have leniency. This is not a spot where we loosen our laws or where we relax our laws. This is a spot where we, in theory, place the millstone. We can't allow perpetrators to get away with what they've been getting away with. We need to protect the children. That needs to be our priority. I just wanted to read 2 quotes real quick. One is by, her name's Margaret, I forget her last name, but she said, "There's no power greater than a community discovering what it cares about." And that's what we're pushing for. I know we all care about children. That's why we're here, and we care about action. That's why we're here. But this is a cause that is worth getting behind. And one other last one is by Napoleon Hill, who inspires me to reach my potential and to be like a phoenix, like he says. But he said, he's speaking of spiritual laws, and he says, "A spiritual law is this: belief must be proven through action. You may speak of faith, write of purpose, dream of greatness, but if you do not act, your belief is not real. Faith without movement is not humility, it is rebellion. It is a silent rejection of the purpose planted inside you. It is a sin of delay dressed in the disguise of prudence. You were not sent here to wait, you were sent here to build. You were not sent here to question your power, you were sent to wield it. The man who walks as if heaven walks with him unlocks the gates of provisions, not because of privilege, but because he acts before proof arrives. We must understand this law. Action confirms belief." So once again, I invite everyone. We have petitions, we have flyers. Grab those, sign up, sign the petition. We need more volunteers. We need to get out here and get this message out. I know it's a hard topic. It has been so hard for me working through this with my wife. So hard. And I'm glad I have this opportunity to stand up and stand beside her. It is an honor to fight for what she finds important and what our Savior, Jesus Christ, has found so important. Please sign up, volunteer. We need people out there to be able to make a difference. We need to be able to take people like Stuart Adams, who are making these decisions to protect perpetrators, down. We need to get people like Todd Weiler out of office and unequivocally rejected from being able to make any decisions. And that is where we, the people, can have power. And that is what we are trying to do, is put power back in the people. Too long we have trusted, and it's time for us to take the power back.
All right, if any of you have questions, you can talk to them at the back of the room. I'm just going to read another couple things. Scriptures. In Matthew 18:6 says, "It would be better for someone to have a millstone hung around their neck and be drowned in the sea than to cause a little one who believes in Jesus Christ to stumble." That's not the exact King James Version, but yeah, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal, and I'm sure we all have that feeling within our hearts of what we would do if we witnessed something happening. I want to read one more thing from one of my core books, and it says, "And also it is an imperative duty that we owe to all the rising generation and to all the pure in heart, because there are many yet on the earth who are blinded by the subtle craftiness of men, whereby they lie in wait to deceive, and are only kept from the truth because they know not where to find it. Therefore, we should waste and wear out our lives in bringing to light all the hidden things of darkness wherein we know them. And these should be attended to with great earnestness." So we do have a duty. When we find out something, it's important that we act upon that knowledge. So just like what Troy said, legally, if you know a child is being abused and you do nothing, you could legally be held accountable. But there's also accountability to God. If we don't step up and do our part and we can, there's going to be an accounting. So I really appreciate all of you coming tonight. I invite you to come again on the 23rd, where we will be hearing from Robert Brown. It will be another really great night where we'll be learning about the Constitution and how we can protect ourselves with the Constitution that's being trampled on and hanging by a thread. So thank you for coming. If anybody wants one of these cock shirts, let me know. And let's go ahead and, yeah, Lorraine.
I was with this man on Tuesday of last week wearing white at a court hearing, and there's going to be another one on the 20th, and I don't know exactly what time, but maybe it's on the website where you can show up. You don't have to say anything, you just show up, and they will feel that. I think it's supposed to be a march, but look, and it's not very far away that you could do something, and it doesn't have to be big.
Is that the one in Austin? Okay. All right, everybody, thank you so much for coming. Please make sure you signed the email list.